What is up, New Age Insider listeners? It is your boy Damian G with his partner in crime, Trina de la Muerte. What up, Trina?
Hey, guys.
So we are on board for another edition of Indie Pop, and today's episode, kids, is going to focus around the word politics. Now, that word is really divisive in this country nowadays, given the current political landscape. Now, we talk about this kind of stuff on Last Mark Standing and lastmarkstanding.com, but in the world of independent wrestling, politics tends to rear its ugly head more than I'm willing to admit. And in my own estimation, it's killing me in a sense. I have put my line in the sand. I've drawn it, and I know how far I'm willing to extend myself for people in this industry. For those who don't know, I've been on a hiatus since June. I'm coming back full force actually in August, and I'll get to that later in the show. But you deal with the ins and outs of an industry, and this goes to sports, this goes to wrestling, this goes to psychology, anything. You get exhausted, you get drained. And I know my partner deals with that or has dealt with that, because we were just talking about the line between being a fan, working for a promotion, or working in a business or an industry, and where do you stand? Now, I know where I stand, and everyone knows I am broadcaster guy. I am not BFFs with wrestlers. Yes, I know a few people here's and there's. I converse with them sometimes on a weekly basis, but it's really topical. It's not like we're solving world hunger together. But in your case, my friend, and I feel like this is the main crux of this episode, how do you navigate the line for you, one, and two, when you know what that line is, how do you pull yourself back over, or can you?
Well, I don't know. I actually don't really know what the answer is. And so that's why, I've been a little cryptic and stuff over the last couple hours, last night and today, about my quote unquote breakup with wrestling, because I think what I have decided is that I don't want to be associated with any promotion in particular. I don't want a job in the business. At the end of the day, I just want to be a fan. I've learned so much about this business, and I've learned the politics that go behind everything, and it's ruined it for me.
Ruined. It's ruined, I say.
Exactly right. I mean, it's just, I had just like such a sour taste in my mouth that usually I happily sit through 3 hours of Raw. I know you've been on a hiatus for a while, but it just, like, once you start seeing the cracks, it's hard to unsee them, right. And that's kind of what it is. Like, I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen good stuff, but I've seen the bad stuff, and some of the bad stuff, there's no mind eraser for that, and it's like, so sometimes, like it affects your enjoyment of something that I've loved for like 25 years, like to its core. Like I've loved wrestling, and it sucks that, knowing so much about it and getting involved and everything, has blurred the line so much that I don't know. It's not fun anymore.
So now that you're saying it's not fun and we're talking about breakups, I want two things from you before we get out of here. I want you to let me know what's next for you, and you can answer that at the end of the show. But for this question, I want you to recount for the members of Indie Pop, because we didn't really talk about this in detail when we first did it on LMS. That first show you worked at the Berwyn Eagles Club when you were a valet. Can you talk about how you felt then versus now?
Night and day. Part of the reason is that I went from, my very first indie show was Anarchy Pro Wrestling, which is super, super tiny promotion. So small that, I couldn't even call it, your guys' favorite word, shindy. I mean, it's just, it's tiny. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. And to go from that to, like, fast forward a year and a half later or something, working for Glory Pro, which is one of the hottest promotions out there right now. But it is night and day. because I'd have to say the smaller promotion, you know, because they're so small and people are just there to work on their craft, and there was more of a sense of community in that locker room. And people really tried hard to make me feel comfortable. And they were excited in my interest in the business and excited about what I was doing, you know, trying to spread wrestling and fandom. You know, I felt appreciated. And you know, like now, a year and a half later, not so much.
What's changed?
You know, I've worked really hard. You know, it's been hard the last couple of months with like Gizmo dying and all this different stuff, and I've taken a back seat with the podcasting. But you know, leading up to Mania, I worked really, really hard to promote our podcast and wrestling and fandom and all this different stuff. And I bent over backwards a lot for a lot of different people in the business. You know, driving them places, just I can't even list like the things that I've done for some people, because it's just kind of tacky. But I've done a lot for a lot of people. And I don't know, like, I don't know if it's because I'm still a fan in their eyes or whatever, the line is so blurred, whether like I'm in the business or not, if I'm a worker or a fan. But it hasn't been appreciated, and it's been sort of taken advantage of several times.
Are you willing to talk about those incidents or any of them?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, you know, sure. I want to be respectful. You know, if you guys were looking at my Twitter leading up to us recording this, I've been pretty fired up about stuff. You know, and I think I even tweeted like, oh, some bridges are going to burn. I don't want to burn any bridges, because the thing is, like, I don't think that anything that's happened to me negatively in this business was out of malice. Yeah. At least from the wrestler side. I can't say that on the fan side. I don't know like what some people's problem with me is on the fan side, but the wrestlers, you know, who I've helped and who I'm friends with and stuff, they're not purposely trying to hurt me. It's just like responsibilities and roles are not defined. And, you know, like when things aren't defined, people can get taken advantage of or feel like they're being taken advantage of or taken for granted. And that's sort of what happened.
Okay, because I remember back during WrestleMania, you weren't having the best time, as it were, and I think that's what started. I want to say this downward trajectory for you in terms of how you feel about this business, and we talk about this all the time. You know, it's a carny endeavor. You know, the whole point of a carnival is to bring you in, get your money, get you out, and move on to the next town. Right? That's the whole premise of a carnival business. Right. So in this beautiful, crazy, dilapidated world of professional and independent wrestling, trying to find where you fit and trying to find a midpoint in which your contributions are respected versus, you know, the praise that we get or we deserve for the things we do versus the whole politics. Like I said earlier, it's a pretty tricky subject to traverse, and
it is.
And you've done a great job. I got to admit, man, like I've seen you working at Glory Pro, and we've been together as fans, and you know, we've worked together on multiple shows, and I see the work you put in, and I've called you the Don King of independent wrestling because you like to put everybody else over. I mean, for Christ's sake, I can count on more than, you know, on at least two hands and maybe on my toes the amount of people you try to get over in this industry, you know, fans, wrestlers, creative projects alike. And that should be appreciated. What I don't appreciate is when people or promotions don't see the value in the things that people bring to the table. It may not be what they want specifically or the role that they believe you should fit. Because, you know, back in 1962, women weren't allowed outside the kitchen, apparently. Right? So, you know, being a woman in this male-dominated field, and, you know, you make the jokes all the time on Twitter about having a bigger, you know, pair of balls than everybody else, and, you know, that you're going to, like, fuck the shit out of people and yada, yada, yada. But here's the thing. I know this because for me, you're one of the boys, and don't take that offensively. And I know you
No,
don't.
I don't. Yes,
You know, you're one of my crew. So we could bust balls and it's okay. But it goes back to the politicking. Like, there's only so many people you can do that with before someone turns around and goes, huh, we ain't cool like that. Because I can even tell you about some of the fan interactions I've had where they'll make commentary about you or about the show that I don't deem appropriate. And I'll turn around and say, you better watch your mouth. You don't know us like that. We ain't that cool.
Right. Exactly.
So in this industry where we got you being the feisty enchilada that I know you to be, I like it. As a human being who understands the hustle, like I wish I had a 10th of your temperament and your willingness to dive headfirst into a brick wall to put people over. But let me say this, and I told you this off air, and I'm going to tell it to you, to the audience of New Age Insiders and Indie Pop.
Oh boy.
I need you to only die on the sword or throw yourself on the sword for those that deserve that kind of production from you. Because think about it like this. When we just get out of college, right? We get our first jobs. Every year that goes by, entry-level jobs become more and more stressful and less beneficial.
Yeah.
And lucrative, yes. And you got to do more to get less. So it's like bleeding from a stone, making a stone bleed. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But people going to try. And in your case, I've seen people try to take advantage of you. I've heard about these stories, and I know them to be true, where they're trying to bleed you out because you're a name, or because you're a woman, or because you have a presence, or because you know person X, Y, and Z. And I'm sorry, that's some bullshit. And I'm sorry for the language I'm using, everybody, but that is some effed up, repugnant nonsense. And to be quite honest with you, I'm so glad you're finally taking a stand against this and saying no mas. Like, come on, man. There's only a select amount of time that we have in any industry that we want to put ourselves into.
Yeah.
Why the hell we want to waste time on people that want to use us and abuse us, in a sense? And that seems to be a word that's going around a lot based on this week and other WWE channels.
Gosh.
But I digress.
Right.
So let me ask
for
this.
Another show.
let me ask this.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself now jumping behind the line where I'm at, or are you needing help to come back over because you're stuck?
I let it sort of get so bad that I'm, like I said, I tweeted, it's like, oh, some bridges are going to burn. Like, I'm prepared for the backlash, and really, like, what I want to do is just go back to being a fan. Like, I'm just going to go to shows and whatever, I'm going to put over the people I want to put over. But if anybody was in attendance at Glory Pro, or, I don't know, was following the show, I didn't have anything to do. I didn't work the show. And so I don't know what my future is with Glory Pro. I don't know if I'm still associated with them or whatever. But if I had my way, I would just not be associated with any promotions, not have a job in the business, not have responsibilities in the business, and just be a fan. A lot of the responsibilities that I had or thought I had, I put on myself, because, leading up to WrestleMania, and that's where I draw the line. I wanted a job in wrestling. I really, really wanted a job in wrestling. I thought I had enough, political capital, talent, expertise, intelligence, whatever. Like, leading up to, a week before WrestleMania, if you asked me, I would tell you it's ridiculous that I don't have a job in wrestling somewhere. And then, fast forward to now, I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm sort of so fed up that it isn't necessarily difficult for me to cross that line. I don't know. I'm just going to be where I want to be at this point, because like I told you off air, I don't want a job anymore in wrestling. There are a couple people that I really try and support, and they're succeeding. And so I don't really have a dog in the race anymore, necessarily. I can just be a fan. You know, because if I'm not attached to a certain promotion or, you know, a certain organization or whatever, you know, I'm just a fan. Like, nobody drew the line, so I'm going to draw the line. I'm just a fan, you know, and it's like, really, you say this all the time. It's like, you want something from us, pay us. You know, you want our work, you want our input, whatever, pay us. You know, like, I'm drawing the line, and I'm just a fan. I don't want a job in wrestling. So if you want something from me, you can pay me.
And you can pay her at Trina de la Muerte on Twitter, or you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/lastmarkstanding. Hashtag pay us.
I don't want it to be it's not about money. It's not about money. And it's more about sort of being appreciated and sort of realizing like what I wanted out of this. I mean, I was never shy about my intentions. Everybody knew that I wanted a job in wrestling. You know, everyone knew I wanted to get paid at least a decent amount for the stuff that I do. So I always put it out there. It was never a secret. And I just kept, you know, overextending myself, doing 300%, just going above and beyond, and, you know, not really getting the same amount of effort from other people or concern or, you know, whatever. Just like gratefulness.
So here's the thing. And I think this is where my former self of being rather salty comes into play, where I don't give two rats behinds about people who want to use me. If you follow my Twitter at Dare to be Damian, you've seen that people have reached out to me and they want my work and they're not willing to pay the piper. And I'm sorry, like people said, like Laz says, like you, like Jeff Bartlett says, and Rico said it today, pay the man. You know, so in your case, pay you. You know, you bring something. I'll say it again. You are definitely someone that can help promote good fandom and good wrestling. I feel that you could even be an agent because it's not even about trying to be in the business. It's about trying to secure a deal for your client. You could be Paul. You could be the next Paul Heyman and be an advocate for someone. You know, a professional advocate. And there are so many different lanes that you can take. And I think as I'm talking about it, I'm starting to see where you fit better. And I think you fit better, not for a promotion, but for the worker. Right.
No, and trust me, I've explored that. I won't give too much away, but I've definitely worked with people who have aspirations of running talent agencies for wrestlers. You know, pretty much representation, handling all their marketing, all this different stuff. So it's an idea, but at the end of the day, there's no money in wrestling. You know, and that was one of my goals, was to help put more money into this business so that everybody gets paid. You know, like to maximize marketing potential and maximize your profile and make money for everybody. That's always been one of my goals. And I said that early on. I haven't said it lately because, you know, I don't want any part of this. But as you're talking, I'm sort of realizing that, yes, it's never really been about money. You know, I just kind of wanted to be appreciated. Like, I wanted to be compensated in comparison to the effort that I gave. And so that's why, you know, I was sort of stingy or whatever with whatever I was being paid. But I kind of feel like if people knew that I wanted to get into this business and that I cared about it the way that I did, and that I had the potential to contribute to it in a beneficial way, I think people should be willing to let me fail, you know, like willing to teach me, you know, what I need to know to succeed. You know, it's like, yeah, like I just sort of got into this in the last year. I've been a wrestling fan for 25 years, but I just got into podcasting. I just got into like helping to promote people and all this. I just got into it a year ago. Like, I don't know everything about the business. I know some things. I know, you know, a lot of things I don't want to know, but, you know, I like even a guiding hand or somebody with like a little more patience would have even been welcome. in
like
lieu
a
of
mentor of some sort.
right, in lieu of compensation, you know, because I obviously I wasn't the best ring announcer, you know, and I tried commentary one time and I didn't get any feedback from that. So I don't even know if that was good or not. Like I had a really good time. I thought it was good.
Right.
I don't even know. So, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I understand that this business is cutthroat and everyone's competing with each other and everybody has to put out the perfect product all the time. You know, but you have to take the people that need a little extra help if you can, and give them a little extra help. You know, like the young wrestler, the green wrestler that needs to know how to write an email to a promoter. This is one of those things that I tell some of my veterans, you know, like some of my vets, these older guys, will show me an email from a green young wrestler asking to be on their show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll show it to me and laugh and be like, look at this kid, he's so dumb, he doesn't even know how to like approach me, blah, blah, blah. And I turned to them and I was like, well, why don't you write him back and tell him the way to do it instead of just ignoring him and making fun of him? Everybody needs like that one person to steer them in the right direction. Otherwise, they're just going to keep making the same mistake. And I talked about this, I think, on Last Mark Standing. That's the way it worked with my husband. You know, when he got into advertising, he didn't know that advertising schools and portfolio schools existed. So, you know, he found out his parents' neighbor, whatever, worked for a huge company in Detroit that does advertising for one of the big car companies. And the guy was like, yeah, you should get into it. You just need a portfolio. So my husband, being the entrepreneur, you know, type that he is, very similar to me, he made his own portfolio. And these were like pencil and paper drawings. So like flip through a magazine and if you see like a Hidden Valley Ranch ad, you know, like hills in the background or whatever, and he drew that, like stick people, right? And then he went and applied to the top advertising agencies in Detroit with this handmade book and got turned away, laughed at, scoffed, until he got to one agency. And one guy looked at his book, looked at him, and then grabbed a bunch of other books and he goes, this is what it should look like. This is what you need to do. Like, go to advertising school, make a portfolio like this, and then we can talk. And so, you know, like, I don't know, like, I guess I'm sort of realizing I didn't get that.
No, it seems like you went in completely blind, for a lack of a better term, and you learned on the fly. And in a lot of cases, that's great. But I feel like in any industry that has competition, that has a dog-eat-dog mentality, you need that. You need that person to guide you who isn't going to dick you over. And unfortunately, unfortunately, you got too many of those people running around that they just want to put themselves over. They want to make themselves the center of attention because they think they're cool with the athlete or the wrestler, when in reality, you're nothing but a gopher. And that's not right. You know what I mean? Like, you need to know your worth. And I think you now, talking and listening to you, know what your worth is. And maybe you always knew, it's just you were expecting other people to know it too.
This is the first time I've cried on Indie Pop.
Yes, this is the first time you cried on Indie Pop, because every other time you've cried, it's been on Last Mark.
Well, there you go. Your cherries are popped, Indie Pop listeners.
Your indies have been popped, folks, because she is now crying on air. And people may think now, like, oh, what the fuck is she crying about? See, that's what happens when you passionately put yourself into something you believe in. And it's not even that you failed, it's that it's left you exhausted. It's left you drained. It's left you almost beaten to the point where you don't want to continue doing it anymore. And you heard Trina earlier this episode. She's done. She wants nothing to do with being a part of a promotion. She just wants to go back to how things used to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why I'm glad to have her back on this side of the line, because she can enjoy what she's enjoyed for the past 25 years.
Right.
And not have to worry that she's ticking off the wrong person in the business or the wrong people.
And specifically, you know, it sort of hit me how much I've helped people in this business. And I literally just came to the realization as I was telling you the story that I haven't had anybody like that. Like, not one person has sat me down and be like, you know, this is the way this works. This is how you should do this. I mean, how hard is it? You know, like, how hard was it for that one guy at that advertising agency to tell my husband, like, go to advertising school? This was before, this was a long time ago. This was before information was accessible. Like, he had no idea that portfolios back when he was looking for jobs were paper. They were like, you know, like a bound book of your best work in like color and just glossy, you know, think of like a model's portfolio, you know, like that. But now, fast forward, it's all online. And so it's like a person now, like a kid now, it's a little bit easier to find out, okay, what's the steps I need to take to become an advertising copywriter or whatever. But that didn't exist. And I've said this so many times on Last Mark Standing, you know, whatever I was trying to do in this business never existed. And I said that many times. I told people, like, I don't have direction. I don't have guidance. I don't have a goal because what I'm trying to do hasn't been done before. And it's just sort of hitting me that, like, regardless of the fact that I put that out there a lot, and I did do so much for people, that nobody stepped up and was like, hey, this is how you need to do this. And that sucks.
I think it goes back to what I said before. I feel as if nobody wants to help because it's every man or woman for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it like this. The line between fans and talent, and this can be in any walk of life, it's not as thin as most people want it to be. It's actually very wide. You know, a lot of it when it comes to fans, I could tell you right now about my first day in broadcasting school. Okay. I met a famous athlete or a former famous athlete, and kind of, you know, part of me was like, wow, I grew up rooting for this person. And upon 5 seconds of meeting him, it was just like disinterest, like, meh, you know, like that's the look I got. And I thought, wow, cool. That's a good way to welcome me into the business. Like, yeah, you're a peon and that's what you are.
Right.
So like, I knew my place right then and there.
Right. Exactly.
And then I could have just gone into that booth, and I did. I laid a fucking egg. I laid a steak bomb and an egg that first day in the broadcast booth, to the point where my mentor pulled me aside and been like, that was garbage.
Mm-hmm.
You sounded unsure. You sounded shot. You sounded as if you didn't have any conviction. Go back home, work on this shit. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And that's what you need. I think you need someone like that. But what I really wanted to highlight is that I didn't know that fandom in and of itself has politics.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are some people who want to suck at the power teat of the athlete, and they're yes men and yes women, and they're gophers, and they're this, that, and the third, just to appease a celebrity, if that's how you want to call it.
They're star fuckers.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, I get to take person A to Denny's, or I get to carry this person's bag, and look at me, I'm it's like you're a fucking caddy.
Yeah.
Like, no, okay, you want to be your caddy and your gopher? Pay up, bruh.
Right, exactly. I'm like, just because I'm a fan doesn't mean I feel like this is the greatest thing in the world, that I get to drive people all around. And like, you know, that's the thing. Like, the line was so blurred, you know, like, people clearly knew that I was thirsty for something. But I don't know if they took me seriously enough to know that it was a job that I wanted to be paid for. You know, and so they took that thirst and turned it to whatever they wanted, to rides to the airport, to free hotel rooms, whatever.
People do that for hotel rooms?
I won't say anymore.
Yeah. All right, but I never, okay. I've
well,
never
I mean,
heard
look,
that before.
I'm not going to go to the extent of, like I said, what I've done for people in this business. But the people
I didn't mean
business,
you. I just meant in general.
Oh, no, I've meant me. Like, I've paid for people's hotel rooms.
Oh, well, who hasn't paid for someone's hotel room every once in a while that we didn't want to? That's
that
that
you're
happens.
not sleeping in.
That you're not sleeping in. Yes, I've
Yeah.
done that for loved ones, and I've gotten burned by that before too. So I
Yeah.
understand that completely.
So anyway, that's
So wait,
I
okay,
digress.
wait. True or false? Is wrestling fandom like a high school cafeteria?
Yes.
How so?
Well, most things are like a high school cafeteria.
I know, but I'm trying to.
I know, right?
Question.
But look, it's like that in the workplace. You know, you have the popular kids, and then you have like the hangers-on, you know, the like leeches,
Mhm.
and then you have the people who just like do their own thing. Like everybody has a place. And we've talked about this in Last Mark Standing before. I think before the rise of social media and the power of social media in terms of being able to market a wrestler and promote a wrestler, the lines were pretty clear. You know, like you don't party with the wrestlers. You don't, you know, go to Denny's with them or whatever. But now in the last couple of years, with the rise of the fan and the power of the fan, we've talked about this on Last Mark Standing. There are fans now who have the power to promote wrestlers. You know, to take a guy who only wrestles smaller shows or whatever and get them booked on a bigger show. And so that already starts to blur the lines of you know, where, who's in power, you know, who has the power in the situation. And so you do have situations of some wrestlers, you know, like sucking up to fans. Or you have fans like sucking up to wrestlers because they, you know, they want somebody for their podcast or whatever. And, you know, I'm guilty of it too. But I always went at it as, look, like, I'm not going to become friends with a wrestler to get them on my podcast. I just wanted to become friends with a wrestler to become friends with a wrestler if they were a good person. You know, like, I wasn't like trying to be friends with every wrestler, but if somebody was cool and like we clicked, then yeah, let's be friends. I mean, I've known Joey Ryan for a really long time, and it never really occurred to me for him to be on the show. And it was just sort of like a thing that happened. I was just like, oh, well, you know, we're going to be together for like the weekend. Why don't we just record something? So that was never my goal, you know, like, and even like when I started being a fan of his, it was never my goal to like be his friend. You know, it just sort of happened that way. And like, I don't know, you know, there's a lot of reasons why the lines are blurred, and there's a lot of reasons why the power shift, you know, is going on, and that people don't know where their place is. It's chaos, you know, like things work a little bit better when people sort of know what their role is, and things are just so murky now that it's kind of a mess.
Well, it seems like we know your role now, and I can say welcome back. And here's the thing. Here's a question I got for you, because you know my schedule coming up. Like, I'm going to be running around covering stuff, you know, and when I cover things, you know me, I take mental notes. I take mental notes of who I think stands out, who needs to get more light shined on them, and things like that. So when do we get you and me back on the road again to cover this like two professional fans who just happen to be broadcasters?
Well, hopefully, if fingers crossed, it'll be New York, the upcoming Progress shows. Let me see.
Oh,
is that what you're asking me? Is that what you're asking me?
That's exactly what I'm asking you, because that's what we talked about. Because
the weekend of the 11th and 12th.
Yep.
Of August.
Battle Club Pro with the British Strong Style, and then Progress. Is it Progress or Progress?
If you're British, it's Progress.
Well, I like to think I'm proper sometimes, so I'll say Progress until someone corrects me.
That's fine.
But see, I'm looking forward to this because, one, Team Flan's reunited back in the building. Let's just
I
go
know.
there.
I miss Hokai so much, and he knows that. I mean,
we got to get him on the show, man, because that's a dude. That is a dude. Speaking of people who made themselves into something,
yes,
didn't have any help.
Yes,
that guy.
Right.
Hokai19 on Twitter, the king of the GIF. That guy's amazing. He
is a success story. If my experience is a cautionary tale, he is the opposite of that. Because now he works for CZW.
And Battle Club.
Yeah, and he gets paid for the stuff that he does, and he gets to hang out with his friends and watch the thing that he likes, and it's all worked out for him. He, props to him. It couldn't have happened to a better person. I miss Hokai because I don't get to see him unless I'm on the East Coast. Right. And it's not like that. It's not like, oh, well, he succeeded, like I didn't succeed. He deserves everything that he's gotten because he's a great person, and he's been doing this stuff out of the goodness of his heart, unpaid, for a really, really long time. Mm-hmm. It's just recently that he's now getting recognized and appreciated and paid. But before that, he was going years gifting wrestlers, promoting them, promoting promotions, shows all over the New York area. Mm-hmm. And it's just now that he's starting to get recognized for that stuff. But he put in a lot of work and a lot of time and money and effort.
It's a labor of love, man.
Point. Yeah, and it started as a labor of love for him, and it paid off. And so it's, I don't know. I don't regret anything. I'm a little sad, but I never went into this, wanting to be anything in particular. I just knew that I loved wrestling, and I liked people, and I wanted to help people. And so I just did everything that I could to help, like I say on my Twitter and stuff, help like my friends and my family, my loved ones, my wrestle fam, like help their dreams come true. Right. Because I feel very, I'm not religious, but I feel blessed. I know I have advantages. I have resources. I have a lifestyle and a life that some people can't afford, can't have. And so that is why I've been so generous with fans and wrestlers. It's because I know that I'm lucky, and I just want to give back as much as I can to an industry and a business that I've been in love with for 25 years. And so I did want a job, but it was never so I could be something in wrestling. Right. It was so that, I could help my friends and family even more than I was already. Like, this was my logic, like, obviously you guys know the wrestlers that I support, especially the young ones, the 19-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, they're all good kids. Anybody that I publicly support, I know them personally. I vet them. Like, some of them I know their parents, like, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I support these people because they're good people. They love wrestling, and I see them as the future of this sport of wrestling. Like, I want my nephew, to, when he's like a teen, to go and watch Maxwell in the WWE. Oh, I told Maxwell, I said, look, when you win the big belt, I'm like, I want a graduation type picture with you. Like, and he just laughed, and he's so like humble about this stuff.
I know he is. Yeah.
And so that's the thing. Like, I felt like, look, if I can raise my position in wrestling to the point where I'm getting paid, then I can only help people like Maxwell or Myron or Kurt Stallion more. And that was the goal. It wasn't to make like a ton of money. It wasn't to be famous. It was to help the people in my life that I loved. This is like a position that I felt like didn't exist before, like a personal cheerleader, like somebody with like in the business, a fan, but like somebody also in the business who could help push people.
A promoter?
Yeah, that was my goal. Yeah, I mean, that was my goal. And I don't even know where I'm going anymore with this, but that's
I get it. And it's one of those things where you've succeeded in that regard, because look at how much pub Stallion's getting. Look how much pub Myron's getting. I didn't know who Myron was until the first Glory Pro show. And all of a sudden now I'm telling people left and right, you need to go to Myron now.
Right.
Same with Kenway. Kenway's our boy. But we weren't as ardent supporting him as much as we do now, because before it was just because we know him and like he's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
Now when I talk about people who are busting their ass to try to make something in this lifestyle, Matt Kenway has grown leaps and bounds in my estimation. Yeah. Kurt Stallion, he drove all the way to New York, man. Look, people don't understand that Kurt Stallion drove from the Midwest to BCW of all places. And wound up taking down, and Papa talked about this, and he took down the promotion, one of the promotion's top guys. Got a hostile New York crowd, probably drunk off their ass in the Elks Lodge, to start cheering for him. And these are things like, what was it? I think it was Best in the World, where Myron went, the pre-show, Myron went up against Kurt. Great match. They gave him like 10 minutes to work with. It was a great match. And if you have a chance to see these two work, if not against each other, but separately, dude, do it, man. Do it.
I think that brings up an interesting point, because I think like attracts like. And it's not a coincidence that a lot of the people that we've been supporting from the beginning have worked hard to get to where they are. You know, like, we can tell you guys all day, every day, that Kurt and Kenway and Myron, they're all good kids, good guys. You know, but they've taken the little push we've given them, and they've busted their asses, and they've, you know, and they are keeping their noses clean and all sorts of things. You know, like, they know that we push them because they are good people, you know, and they're not jeopardizing that. Everybody's sort of playing their part, you know, like, I haven't run into one yet. You know, I don't know. Maybe I've, luckily, knock on wood, like, been good with judgments of character. But, you know, that does make me happy for all the, like, underappreciated moments that I've had in this business. It does make me happy that the people that I have supported from day one haven't taken that for granted. You know, the Kurt Stallings and the Kenways and the Myron, you know, like, Maxwell, like, I feel like his aunt. Like, you know, like, whenever he sees me at a show, it's like he, like, makes it a point to come over and say hi. And, like, you know, like, these kids let me know that they appreciate the promotion that I give them. And that's part of the reason why I still promote them and I'm still on board with them. You know, if you notice that I'm not talking about certain people, part of it is because, you know, maybe they've done something that, like, wasn't cool or whatever. You know, like, I don't want to associate my name with anybody that's doing something negative in the business, hurting other people, whatever. And so I don't. So if I'm not talking about them, or I stop talking about them, you know, there's a chance that maybe something happened. But, you know, as long as I'm around, I'm going to keep pushing the best people. And I don't mean wrestlers. I mean, like, good people in this business, because this business needs more kind-hearted, empathetic, compassionate, caring people. And those are the people that I'm going to push, whether they're good wrestlers or not. And God bless Matt Kenway. We've talked about him before, but you know, when I first started supporting Kenway, he was so green, so green, to the point where, you know, I had to preface it to people. I'm like, look, I'm all about this kid Kenway. He's really green, but he's a good kid. He's going to work hard. That's what I told people. You know, and now he's been putting time in the gym. Like, he's been cutting amazing promos. I mean, I'm just astounded at how he's developed in the last 6 months. So it's like, at the end of the day, like, I just want to push good people. And if they happen to be great wrestlers, that's awesome. If they work hard to become great wrestlers, even better. But that's, you know, none of this was ever about fame or money or whatever. It was all good stuff.
And I feel like that's the best time for us to go out on this episode. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, don't worry. We are going to be back going on the road and watching our shows and this, that, and the third, starting in August. I'll be back visiting shows and giving you my 2 cents on people I like and people I want to see develop in the business. Like, I've gone on record and say Willow Nightingale is one of those people. If you are able to catch her in a match, she's one of the up and coming wrestlers here in New York. Be sure to catch her. She has a really great snap DDT, if you know what I'm talking about, when it comes like that Miz DDT. She has a good one. Yeah, and she has a great missile drop kick from the top rope. Awesome. And she's just a ball of positive energy, which is always great because that's marketable. So just be on the lookout for a few more people when we go forward with the new version of Indie Pop, as well as the new versions of Last Mark Standing, because we are now moving a little bit away from wrestling in that regard, and we are a network, so we will cover many a different thing. So you could always find us at Last Mark Podcast, myself at Dare to Be Damian, and Trina, what's your new Twitter handle?
Trina de la Muerte.
Trina de la Muerte, so Trina of the Dead, like some weird, like Aztecian
Let me go on the record really quick. So it's actually a play on my real name, because in Filipino culture, a child's middle name, parents usually give their children whatever middle name they want, but in our culture, a lot of the times, your middle name is your mother's maiden name. And my mom's maiden name is a derivative of Muerte, so it's actually my nickname, because Trina's not my full name, and my middle name. So it's a play on that. So it didn't come out of nowhere. I'm not like a Day of the Dead like lover or anything like that. Like it just sort of, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It sounds cool. You know,
I was gonna say, did you get signed to Lucha Underground or anything?
Right. I'm like, it's my actual name. And it sounds cool. And I know, I can't remember who it was, but one of the fans was like, yeah, go with it. He's like, it sounds like a Lucha Underground name, you know, and supported it, because it was like a whim. Yeah, it was a whim, because I was already, when I changed it, and you guys, if you follow me closely enough, I was already starting to try and break away from wrestling. The name change came because I didn't want to be the Marky Smark anymore. Right. You know, because that's how people were coming up to me, and you know, I'm like, there's a person behind this, and so I'm like, you know what, let me use my name and actually put my name out there, and start to separate this stuff, because the lines were too blurred.
And that's pretty much where we're going as a network and as a team. This whole thing is starting to veer away from professional wrestling and starting to go into sports and life. And if you're interested, you can hear my Damian G reflections on patreon.com /lastmarkstanding. I will release it to the public later in the week, but I wanted our patrons to be the first to hear it. And it's pretty deep.
It's very personal, guys.
It's very personal. And it's one of those things where that's what we want to do. We want to be personal. We want to be authentic and reach out to all of you. So on behalf of everyone at Last Mark Standing, myself, Trina, Mikey, everybody, everyone on the team, we love you. Without you, there is no us. You are listening to Indie Pop on the New Age Insiders Network. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Hold on one second.